All right, so today we are doing a deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Classic.
It really is. I mean, it sold millions of copies for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it, everyone's read it or says they've read it.
Right.
But it really challenges how we think about money, right?
Totally.
Like throws out the window, go to school, get a job, buy a house, all that stuff. And it's really about getting financially smart, becoming financially savvy, and that's what we're going to dive into today. We're not going to summarize the whole book because we could do a whole dissertation on this.
Exactly. It's dense.
But we're going to pull out the big aha moments that I think can really change your perspective.
The big takeaways.
The big takeaways, exactly. So to kick us off, this book really starts with a bang, and this whole idea of the financial education gap.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what Kiyosaki's saying is that most of us, we're not really taught how to manage money, at all, let alone how to make it work for us, not just the other way around.
It's so true. And so we kind of end up in this world of finances, and we're just like deer in headlights almost.
Totally.
It's like we're being handed a sailboat, but no sailing lessons.
Yeah.
So it's not about blaming anyone. It's just about realizing, okay, there's this gap. What can we do to fill it in?
Exactly. And I mean, think about it. Over 32 million copies sold.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot. That's a whole lot of people being like, yeah, I feel that financial education gap, you know?
Totally. I think it shows how hungry people are for a different approach, a different way of thinking about money, that the old script isn't working.
Exactly. So one of the biggest things I think that comes out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is this whole idea of assets versus liabilities.
Yes.
And it's not as straightforward as you might initially think.
Right.
It's easy to kind of just be like, oh, yeah, assets, liabilities. But he really flips the script on it.
He does.
And he says, it's not about what you own. It's about what is putting money in your pocket versus taking money out.
100%, yeah.
So, he uses the example of a house.
Right.
And we're conditioned to think owning a home, that's the American dream. That's an asset.
Right. You made it, yeah.
Right. But he's like, hold on a second. If that mortgage payment, if that's a huge chunk of your income every single month, is it really an asset?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it acting more like a liability?
Totally.
I think even just for our listeners, think about it in your own life, your own situation. Is your house really working for you? Or is that mortgage payment keeping you from maybe pursuing other financial goals?
Yeah, that's such a great point. And it is such a light bulb moment for a lot of people when they read that, because you're so right. We're conditioned to think, oh, house equals success, house equals wealth.
Right.
But he really challenges that. And he's like, no, it's about building wealth that works for you. Even if you have a side hustle going on that's bringing in extra cash, that's an asset, even if it's not a fancy car or a big house.
Exactly.
Like owning rental property.
Beer.
That's an example of an asset if the rental income outweighs the expenses every month.
Totally. And I think, speaking of setting yourself up for success, financially speaking, one thing that Kiyosaki also talks about is how important it is to teach kids about money.
Yes.
Because, it's not like we're necessarily getting that in schools.
Right.
It's not part of the curriculum, really,
Yeah, and if it is, it's very surface level.
Exactly.
It's not
It's not practical.
Yeah, it's not practical. It's not, how to actually manage money.
Right. Exactly.
And it's not to say that we should be turning kids into mini stockbrokers.
Right.
But it's why not instill these good habits early on that can set them up for success later?
Totally.
Even things like saving their allowance or understanding the value of things.
Yes.
Learning to wait before you buy something you want,
The delay gratification.
Yeah, exactly. Just really simple things like that can make such a big difference.
Exactly. And it goes back to that whole financial education gap thing. We have to be proactive in equipping ourselves and the next generation with this knowledge and these skills.
Yeah.
So to kind of wrap things up, here's just a final thought that I was left with after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad that I want to leave with you all. If you had to teach someone the basics of money management today, what's the one thing that you would prioritize? What's the one thing inspired by Rich Dad, Poor Dad that you would want to make sure that they knew?
Yeah.
Something to think about. And until next time, happy diving.
Happy diving.